My name is Yesenia Mata. I am the executive director of La Colmena. La Colmena is a day labor and immigrant rights organization based here in Staten Island. La Colmena does community engagement, it does community empowerment, and also ensures that the community culture continues growing here on Staten Island, whether you're Mexican, Honduran, and that our Latino community can have a space here on Staten Island. So I decided to be part of organizing a community here in Staten Island back in 2016. I moved here, but majority of when I started was when I was 16 years old, and that's 16 years ago. When I was 16 years old, I started getting involved in my community. I started organizing. I realized the power of the Latino vote, and that's when I decided to start with voter registration, getting many of my friends registered to vote, and we started organizing outside of my back porch. It was nothing fancy, but we just wanted to create change because we did see how there was much of the school to prison pipeline system happening. We did realize how the main Cook County jail was literally 5 blocks away from my house, how the air was constantly being polluted. There was a high rate of asthma. To be quite honest, we didn't know exactly what we were doing, but we're like, okay, you registered to vote and then you go out and vote, because politics was so out of our reach, right? We never were part of that process. So we didn't know how to even be part of that process, such as to get our community to vote. So throughout the years, we became very savvy in the type of work that we did, that eventually it led me to being hired by Bernie Sanders back in 2016 to become his National Latino Outreach Strategist. And I was able to do the type of work that I was doing in the South Side of Chicago, across the country. And eventually that is where I also met my husband, who is from Staten Island. And he brought me to Staten Island after the campaign. And he told me that I was going to fall in love with Staten Island. And it was so true, because when I got here, I did see automatically the need to ensure that the Latino community also had a voice, right? And it did, but I did see how it was constantly overlooked. When I decided to move here back in 2016, that is when I started, working with the community and slowly letting the community know the power of the Latino vote, right? And that's eventually I ended up becoming the EDO La Colmena executive director. And through that push, right, last year we did launch our campaign, Mi Voto, Nuestro Voto, meaning my vote, our vote, and letting others know that you may not have the ability to vote because you're undocumented, but you have somebody that could vote for you, right? We also pushed for the census. There's a huge percentage now of Latinos. The percentage increased, and it was due to the work that we were doing, right? So it takes some time to organize, and eventually, this year was the second. We're right now in 2021 in the second anniversary of the Mexican Independence Day parade, right? It just shows how still we have a lot of work to do, right? But with organizing, it does work. It takes time. It's very time consuming, very tiring, but you keep your eye right on, and I would say the prize. So La Colmena is very focused, and let me, so La Colmena is a nonprofit, right? So it's not a business or company, it's a nonprofit, right? But the nonprofit in itself focuses on ensuring that the empowerment of the community engage, it grows, right? That the community is engaged, that the community in itself is the one that empowers, that is so empowered for them to speak for themselves, right? And I think with La Colmena, that's much of our programming. And we bring English classes. We now are partnering up with CSI to make sure that the community knows how to, speak English in in a supportive environment, right? So it's creating that pipeline that through La Colmena, where we have the trust in the community and letting them know why it's important to speak English. Overall, to make it short and simple, right? It's to empower the community for them to become advocates for themselves. What I always tell specifically the youth, and this is why I love UAU, at first people would be like, oh, these are just a bunch of kids. They don't know what they're doing. But you'd be surprised the amount of people that also feel the same way as you, right? If you feel passionate about something, and just know that a lot of times it's just courage. It's just courage. I mean, when I started back when I was 16, I was like, oh my God, I'm scared. I don't have support, right? But it's just courage. Even now I get scared every time I do certain stuff. But you have to keep pushing. You're gonna be afraid, you're gonna be scared. And like I always tell people, like when they ask me that question, I was like, I'm still scared. I get scared all the time because sometimes I'm like, 2 years ago, right? It's like the Mexican Independence Parade wasn't there. And for me, I was scared because I was like, wow, can this really happen? Am I allowed to do this? What if things come out wrong? It's like you get scared, and that's normal. As long as you care about an issue and you know this is right, then do it. For me, Mexican independence is really important because growing up, I would see how some people weren't proud to say I'm Mexican, right? I'm brown, or I have an accent, because you were either bullied in high school, right? Or you had an accent if you were, browner than another person, or if, there were just so many stereotypes, right? So I was very blessed to have a father who is like one of the smartest people ever. Like he really is. So he taught me at a very young age to feel proud of being Mexican, right? Being proud of being brown. But at times I would see other people like that they didn't have that. So for me, I grew up in that environment. Still, right, with what you see outside, it does affect you. So when the day that I really was comfortable of accepting myself, like I'm fully Mexican and I'm brown and I have an accent and this is what I am, that is when I became more powerful, when I accepted who I was fully. That is why I believe Mexican independence is so important. And when I say, right, like the children that are part of the folklorico group, and that they were marching, and they said that they loved how people were loving their Mexican garments. And it was beautiful because like that's how I grew up. I grew up feeling very proud. My parents would bring like my Mexican garments, and I don't know, I grew up like that. So that just seeing them, like I want them to have that type of upbringing, right? So with Hispanic heritage in itself, it's just beautiful when it combines every Hispanic background, because it's not just Mexicans. There's, Hondurans, Colombian, Dominican, like all of that, right? And I think that's the beauty of it, like accepting like who we are, like in that month, like, yes, I'm Mexican, but it's also accepting like all the other cultures. So I think Hispanic Heritage Month is it's so beautiful, and it's our month. So so I love it. I think for me, in my work culture, especially at La Colmena, I every time you see me, and I'm surprised there's not like a Mexican flag in the back, right? But every time you see me, I let people know I am Mexican, right? It's not gonna be, it's gonna need to be in your face. So and I love that because it also, when I see other people who are struggling with their identity, right? Or other people who have heard others that, deny the fact that they're Mexican, when they see that, they're like, oh, I'm Mexican too, right? So and it supports them. But when it comes to La Colmena, right, I also let my staff know, be proud of your background. And at La Colmena, we also have people from other different backgrounds, right? Like our deputy director, she's Dominican, so she's hardcore loving her Dominican community, right? And it's beautiful because I'm like, all right, I pride myself being Mexican. She prides herself being Dominican. We have somebody else that's from Haiti, and she prides herself like hardcore, I'm from Haiti. But the reason I say this, like I pride myself being Mexican, is because I want other people that are from other cultures or other backgrounds, right, to say like, hey, I'm hardcore Colombian, I'm hardcore Dominican, I'm hardcore, just that's beautiful. And I think that's what I like to bring a La Colmena. We celebrate everyone's culture at La Colmena. When it's their time of the month, we're like, perfect, like we could eat your food, right? And that's the most exciting part. So I that's what I like to bring at La Colmena. Just showing up, right? I think UAU did amazing work when UAU showed up in our Mexican Independence Day parade. That was very important. It's important to have the support of organizations, other communities, because this can't grow without the support of others, and vice versa, right? Because when other people support us or other organizations, it just shows the acceptance of our community, and then it reflects the welcoming Staten Island that it could really be, right? So just showing up is very important.